Welcome to IQ Matrix TV, the home of hundreds of life-altering mind maps. This is Adam, and in today's topic, I'm going to explore and help you work through how to thrive amid chaos. And we're going to try to potentially help this guy make the best of a horrible, unfortunate situation with the barbecue sort of exploding unexpectedly. And look at the shock in his eyes. What's going on there? So this is going to be a 4-part video series. So in part 1, we're going to explore the role model mentality. So this is important to adopt that role model mentality and sort of perspective to help us deal with the situation, unfortunate sort of circumstances that we're sort of facing, the chaos, the crisis, or whatever that may be. So we'll explore that in this video in a little bit of detail. In the second video, we're going to look at how to stay centered. So this is kind of an extension of the role model mindset, but it's still very much a part of the role model mindset. And we're going to explore some key areas there as well. In the third video, we're going to look at how to manage our fears, how to effectively manage our fears so we can work through crisis, adversity, chaotic situations far more effectively. Because, when we're facing these sort of unexpected circumstances, it's easy to fear, to be afraid, and especially when there's a lot of uncertainty going on. So to be able to manage our fears will not only help you to stay centered and grounded, but will also help you to embrace that sort of role model mentality. And in video 4, we're going to look at how to build a plan of action to help you to fully be your best self and to make the best of chaotic and difficult situations and hopefully thrive amid chaos. So let's jump into it. Let's jump into the very first branch, which is the role model mentality. Now, when we think about a role model is someone that we typically aspire to, someone who handles themselves very well, who makes decisions, effective decisions, who is an inspiring example for us to follow. So for this branch, as we're sort of expanding it, expanding the concepts, I want you to think of a role model in your life, someone who has been inspiring during difficult times, during adversity, uncertainty, or whatever that may be. Keep that picture of this person in mind, and that will help you to sort of interlock these ideas that we're going to be working through. But before we do that, I wanted to sort of explore the idea of, what's the opposite of a role model mentality? And when we think about that, it's usually a victim mentality. So forgive me, but I'm going to scribble all over the map. But this is not permanent, so we'll be able to scribble it right off as well. The victim mentality is the sort of approach to life that we take where we take no responsibility. It's kind of as though life is just happening to us. And because it's happening to us, we complain, we have no control, so we point fingers, we blame, and there's nothing that we can do. We feel helpless, we feel hopeless in that sort of state. But on the other hand, if we absorb the role model mindset, that mentality, that is the complete opposite to the victim mentality. That when we're in a role model sort of mentality, what happens is now others are relying on us to set a good example, to be the person that can, that can help them through these sort of situations, through these difficulties. So if we can embrace this role model mentality, then all of a sudden we're taking an approach of we're taking responsibility. Yes, things might not be our fault. The circumstances that we're sort of in, they may not be of our own making, but circumstances are the way they are. We realize this, and we need to make the best of those situations. So we embrace our situation, we accept how things are, and we move forward, and we try to lift other people up so they can be their best selves and they can make the best of the situation. And as you sort of see, that will sort of be our theme as we sort of work through this map. Be our best selves are right here, and make best. Messy writing. Make best of situation. Okay, so we've got to be our best selves and make the best of the situation. So let's jump into it. Now, when it comes to a role model mindset and adopting that mindset, fully embracing that mindset, there are effectively three commitments that we need to make. And the very first commitment that we need to make is we need to commit to being an inspiring role model. So, inspiring role model. We need to commit to being that inspiring energy for others to follow, for others to fully support, our cause, support what we're doing, and then follow our lead. That's the ideal sort of scenario, and that's where we really need to start. The second commitment we need to make is to commit to setting a good example. We need to commit to setting a good example for others. And that effectively means that we need to be able to make decisions that serve the greater good. So what's that mean? Making decisions that serve the greater good. When we make a decision that serves the greater good, we're not thinking about our own interests. We're not thinking about the specific interests of specific people, even though we do take them into account. But we try to make decisions that serve the greater good of the situation. That's essentially the role model mindset and approach to decision making. And that's something that we'll sort of continue to explore throughout this map in a variety of different ways. So, three commitments: commit to being an inspiring role model, commit to setting a good example, and commit to making decisions that serve the greater good. They're the keys. But to fully embrace that role model mentality, we need to demonstrate three specific things. And these three things come in the form of calmness, strength or mental resilience, and patience. So if we can display calmness, our ability to stay grounded, to stay centered, and emotionally detached from the situation, that will help us to embrace that role model mentality and make the best of the situation. And if we can stay emotionally resilient through the struggles, through the tough times that we experience, again, that will help us to embrace that role model mentality and mindset. And the third one is patience. We need to be able to fully embrace the idea of patience. Patience with others, with ourselves, with the situation. So let's explore each of them in a little bit of detail. Now, as you see here, what I have within all these IQ Matrix maps, and there's hundreds of maps available on the IQ Matrix website, all kinds of maps that break down a variety of different sort of self-development topics. One of the keys to these IQ Matrix maps are questions. Questions to help us sort of explore these ideas in further detail. If we didn't ask questions, then we wouldn't get the answers to help us to implement these ideas in our lives. So we need to be able to ask these questions and not just watch the video and passively sort of answer these questions, but we need to be able to actively incorporate the answers to these questions in our lives. So I hope that as we go through the questions, there are quite a few questions within this entire map, and I hope that you can really work on embracing those ideas and applying these things in your life. So let's get started with the first question. So for the idea of calmness, of staying calm in a situation, and that's something that's got to be top of mind when we're sort of embracing that role model mentality and facing crisis situations or chaos or whatever that may be for you. One thing that we can ask ourselves throughout the day, just consciously, maybe you have it on a little notepad or something like that, you just keep that on you or on your phone or whatever, is to ask yourself how to think and act calmly, or how will I think and act calmly in this situation. The key here is we are being intentional, and this is another sort of underlying theme that we're sort of going to talk about as we sort of progress through this map. So it's all about being intentional as we can get. So we need to approach each situation and ask ourselves, how can I think and act calmly in this situation? That sets an intention for us. it kind of advances us forward by helping us to deal and handle the situation far more effectively than if we were to approach it without being intentional. I hope that makes sense. So another question we could ask ourselves is, how will you choose to think and act in this situation? And here the key to this question is the choice aspect of things. How are we going to choose to think and act calmly in this situation? You will notice that with these maps, with these questions that we have here and throughout the map, you'll find that a lot of questions are similar but slightly different. It's done on purpose because it helps us to fully work through those questions in a variety of different ways to get slightly different answers that will help us to gain a comprehensive understanding of what we need to do moving forward. So another question you could ask yourself here is, how would a role model think and act in this situation? Now, this is an important question because if you are struggling with the idea of seeing yourself as a role model, or you've never put yourself in that sort of situation where you have been a role model where others are relying on you to set a good example, then embracing that idea might be a little bit difficult. But you can potentially envision a role model, a person that you maybe aspire to, or one of your role models in your life, or maybe an ideal version of you. You can envision that, and then you can try to model that vision of yourself or that other person. That can be very helpful. So if you're finding it difficult to embrace that sort of role model mentality, then that's something that you can do that will help you to do that. So first one, think and act calmly. Let's keep that in mind, and let's make sure that we remind ourselves to calmly approach every single situation. Second area that we want to demonstrate, that's sort of part of the role model mentality, is the strength. So this is all about inner strength and mostly resilience. So emotional resilience. So we need to be able to demonstrate emotional resilience and inner strength that can help us to get through these difficult times, these circumstances that we are dealing with. And one of the best questions here that you could ask yourself is how to be mentally strong. How will I be mentally strong in this situation? What does this situation require of me? What kind of mental strength does this situation require of me? Another question is, how will you generate the mental strength you need to get through this? So again, if you're struggling with the idea of how can I be mentally strong because you don't see yourself as being strong emotionally, or dealing with that sort of situation, then you could ask yourself the question, how will I generate, or how could I generate the mental strength I need to get through this situation as effectively as possible, to make the best of the situation and to be my best self in this situation? So a very important question to ask. And then under here again, I write, how would a role model demonstrate mental strength and resilience? So again, if you're finding it difficult to imagine yourself as a role model, then it's good to imagine somebody else and then to model their behavior. And then the final one that we need to demonstrate is patience. Patience is another key area that is very important, especially when it comes to crisis, chaotic sort of situations where there's a lot of uncertainty going around and a lot of people are struggling. And when there's a lot of uncertainty, when there's a lot of things going around, it's tough. And we kind of rush into things. We make rash decisions, and we just don't think things through carefully, objectively, or rationally. And that's something we're going to discuss in the second video. We need to be able to embrace the idea and demonstrate patience throughout the day. And there's 3 ways we need to demonstrate patience. What I'll do is I'll just zoom in a little bit so we can write here. So we need to demonstrate patience 3 ways. So 1, 2, 3. So we need to demonstrate patience with ourselves. Okay? With yourself, you need to demonstrate. So you need to be patient. These are difficult times. And maybe you're not used to these sort of situations. You're trying your best to be your best self and to make the best of the situation, but things might not go as expected. So be patient with yourself. Take time to work through situations. We need to be patient with the situation itself, because when we're facing a chaotic situation, a crisis situation, it's difficult to predict exactly how things will sort of resolve themselves, or how we can help to resolve things. Things might be a lot more difficult than we imagine, and they might unfold much more slowly. And therefore, in those sort of situations, we need to be patient. We need to be able to see things through, to help get everyone on board, to work through problems effectively as possible. So let's be patient with ourselves. Let's be patient with the situation. And the third one, we need to be patient with people. So we need to be patient with other people. Why is that? Well, because there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of chaos going on. And people that would normally be calm, collected, chilled, lighthearted, they're tense, they're afraid, they're now worried, they're stressed. Under those sort of situations, people do uncharacteristic things. And because they do uncharacteristic things, we've got to understand that that's going to happen. And we need to be patient. We need to acknowledge and understand what they're going through, and then help them to work through that situation, to help them be their best selves, and to help them make the best of the situation. So when it comes to patience, we should ask ourselves how to demonstrate patience, right? Easy question. How will I demonstrate patience in this situation? How will I demonstrate patience with myself? How will I demonstrate patience with others? And our question here is, where must you show a greater degree of patience? So maybe this is a great question, because it helps us to sort of highlight key areas where maybe we are lacking patience, and help us to sort of fine-tune our approach in those specific areas. And how will you demonstrate patience with others, which we've already sort of talked about. So there you go, the three things, 3 areas that you need to sort of focus on when you're demonstrating, when you're trying to, not demonstrate, but when you're trying to embrace that role model mentality. Then we need to focus on staying calm, showing emotional strength and resilience, and demonstrating patience. And that will help us to embrace that role model mentality that we spoke about here. But then again, also, when it comes to embracing a role model mentality, we need to commit, right? We need to make 3 commitments. So 1 is we need to be committed to being an inspiring role model. Number 2, we need to be setting a good example, right, for others. And 3, we need to make decisions that serve the greater good. And that might be one of the toughest things that you can do. And we're actually going to talk about that in a sec as we go through some of the brainstorming questions. But I hope that for now, as you know, we've sort of reached this point of the video, I hope that this is starting to make sense. I hope that you are seeing the sort of bigger picture come to life and unfold, that you are starting to connect the dots and saying, aha, okay, this is making sense. Now, if I follow these ideas, if I commit to doing these things, I will make progress. And that's very true. That's very true for anyone who commits to these ideas. You don't need to read a ton of books on how to work through a crisis. These ideas presented in this map will show you exactly, explain to you exactly what to do. You've just got to commit to working them in your life. So let's just finish up here this branch by going through some brainstorming questions. So these are just some ideas that will help you to sort of fully embrace this role model mentality that we just spoke about. So first of all, first question is this one here. Who is relying on me to set a good example? Who is relying on me to set a good example? Another question here is, who looks up to you times of need, chaos, crisis, distress? Or who needs you to lead them through this chaos and uncertainty? I'll just zoom in on these 2 questions a little bit. So who needs you? Who is relying on you? If people are relying on us, they're the people that we need to be able to embrace this role model mindset for, right? Because they're looking up to us for guidance, for direction. And these people might be different at work. If you want to embrace that mindset at work, the role model mentality. It might be different at home. Maybe you're working with your kids there, and your kids are looking up to you. It might be different at school if you're in a school sort of environment. So we need to take a different approach in each of these situations to adopt that role model mentality. And our approach might be very different in each situation. Who needs us to lead them through the chaos and uncertainty? Once we know who our audience is, who the people we are guiding, we are trying to be a role model for, that's when we can start to adjust our approach moving forward. Next question. How can I be an example? So here, how can I be an example for others to follow? So interesting, very similar sort of question, but how can I be an example? So now you're putting yourself in the perspective of what you might be able to do to be an example for people to follow during these times. And if we can embrace the idea of being a good example, someone from the perspective of what kind of role model would you like to have that would be setting an example in this situation that you would be inspired and want to follow. That's the kind of person that we need to be ourselves. And that's the question that I ask here. So what kind of role model would you like to have during times of crisis? And then if you can use that idea of that role model, then that's when you can start building on things, and it will give you a better idea of what you might need to do, things you might need to say in order to fully embrace the role model mentality. And then another question over here is, how can you be an inspiring and positive and dependable role model during these chaotic times? So again, poses the question a slightly different way, but because the questions are slightly different, it gives us a full sort of idea of the things that we might need to do step by step to embrace that sort of mentality. And then the final question, the long question here is, what decisions would a role model make in this situation? So what decisions would a role model make in this situation? And that comes back to what? To committing, to making a commitment, to make decisions, right? Make decisions that serve the greater good. That's essentially what it means, right? What decisions would I make? But for us, we might need to think about that in advance. We might need to think about the decisions that we will make in advance. We might need to outline a set of criteria that we'll use to make decisions. Because if we can stay consistent, and staying consistent is the key. Consistency. So I'll write here consistency. We need to be able to stay consistent with our decisions. So having a criteria in place where, okay, we're going to make decisions in this situation in such a way, and then we're going to make decisions in another situation by following a set of criteria. Consistency is the key here, because if you're inconsistent when you make decisions, then people lose respect, and when they lose respect, you're losing that influence that you can have over them as a role model in that sort of situation. So consistency is definitely the key there. How would a role model act and behave during these troubling times? That's another question you could ask yourself if you're finding it difficult to embrace that idea of a role model mentality. And another question here is, what decisions would be, and I love this question, so I'll highlight again, what decisions will be in the best interests of others while also making the best of the situation? Isn't that a great question? I'll read it again. What decisions would be in the best interests of others while also making the best of the situation? So again, we're looking at making decisions that serve the greater good. So if we can make decisions as a role model that are in the best interests of others, plus also make decisions that make the best of the situation, then we can build a criteria for setting those decisions. And therefore, we can develop some consistency over time, and we can fully embrace, that idea of being a role model who makes effective decisions during these times that others will support, that others will respect, and that others will agree and follow. And then the final one under here I've got is what criteria, so we already talked about it, but what criteria would a role model use to make decisions when faced with these difficulties? And then finally here, just a few other questions is how to think about your circumstances as a role model. That's something that we've got to be able to consider. And what to believe. So what would it be helpful to believe? Because if you're thinking a certain way about something, and say you've got all these negative thoughts in your mind about that thing, then obviously your beliefs are aligned in a very negative sort of way. So you're believing negative things about yourself, about others, about the situation, or whatever that may be. So to make the best of a situation and to be our best selves in the situation, we need to fully embrace the idea of what would it be helpful to believe. If you don't embrace the idea of what would it be helpful to believe in this situation, then you'll never reach a point where you can make the best of that situation. So even if you don't believe the idea that you can work through this successfully or whatever that may be in your circumstances, it's still helpful to ask yourself, what would it be helpful to believe for me to be able to work through this? For me to be able to help these people to become their best selves, to make the best of this situation. Then I write under here, what would it be helpful to believe about others and about the situation? So let's take a bit of a bigger sort of view of this. So I hope that you're seeing how everything here is starting to sort of come together. So let's just back up and explore some of the main points before we sort of finish this off. And so here, obviously, the role model mentality is where we started. So that's something that we got to make sure that we fully embrace. Then we got to commit to three things. One, okay, in being an inspiring role model. Two, to setting a good example. And three, to making decisions that serve the greater good. And then three more things that we need to demonstrate. So we need to demonstrate calmness, strength, and patience. If we can demonstrate those three things, we can make the commitments. And then here we understand here with this question, who's relying on us, right? Who is relying on us, relying on me here, to set a good example? And then if we can follow through and become that sort of embrace fully that role model mentality and make decisions that serve the greater good and make the best of the situation, then that puts us in the mindset that we can potentially thrive amid chaos. Right? Because we fully embrace that mentality of a role model, then there's nothing stopping us from making the best of the situation and from doing the best we can in this situation. So I hope that was of value. I hope that you found some of this helpful and that you can start applying it in your life. In the second video, we're going to talk about how to stay centered and grounded, which is sort of like an extension of the role model mentality. So we're going to explore that in further detail there. But that's it. I hope it's starting to sort of make sense, and I hope you're seeing that the roadmap, the sort of the blueprint and framework that we're starting to sort of build and put together. So there's a lot of interesting things that we still need to go through and explore as we work through this map. And I hope you can get started. Get started with that role model mentality, because that's the foundation of this map. If you can start embracing that, then everything else will become easier and you'll be able to then manage your fears far more effectively, stay centered and grounded, and then build a plan of action to help you thrive amid chaos. So thank you for watching. I hope you found that of value. If you would like to download this map, if you would like to read a summary of this map, if you'd like to check out all the other videos of this map and other related resources, visual resources, and everything like that, all the links are below this video, so check them out. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe and click on the bell icon, you'll get notifications when new videos like this are released. So I hope you found this of value, and thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.